So everyone's really hyped up about the Pixel 10 Pro, but this year, the Pixel 10 might be the better overall buy because you get triple cameras on the rear. You get a display that has a peak output of 3000 nits on that OLED panel. You also get a battery that's actually larger than the standard Pixel Pro, and every single AI feature that Google announced at its recent event. So is the Pixel 10 the Pixel phone to get this year? Let's jump in and find out. Let's start on the rear and those triple cameras. You actually get a 48 megapixel main lens, 10.8 megapixel telephoto, and a 13 megapixel ultra wide. And then on the front, you get another 10.5 megapixel front facing sensor. All will record 4K at 60 FPS. And now let's break down the quality of all those lenses. So essentially what you have here in terms of the ultra wide and the main lens is those two sensors are the exact same found in the Pixel 9a. So what you get here is really good images, very detailed with well-balanced contrast and colors, and does a great job of detailing shadows as well. So what you're gonna have here is a super crisp experience. And then the ultra wide, 13 megapixels, does a really good job of not creating a soft, flatter look, which can happen sometimes on lower megapixel sensors. Very detailed and well balanced, again with good contrast and brightness. Both sensors are classic Google image processing at its absolute best. Ton of AI working in the background, especially when you take shots in portrait mode. You'll see it, it'll capture an image, it'll look like it's not captured properly in portrait mode, and then it'll do a lot of AI in the background to refine it. The main highlight and change here is actually that telephoto lens, which at 10.8 megapixels outputs 5 times optical zoom. So what you can do here is digitally get up to 20x, and it produces an incredibly detailed photo. Again, using AI to support it in post-processing. And then what you have here is an image that doesn't look cartoony or flat or juddery. It actually looks really good. I know if you went 50, 100x on the Pro models, it can lose some image quality. And then let's talk about that front-facing sensor. Again, does a really good job, especially in skin tones and highlights, to even out shadows and gives you a very detailed portrait shot, especially around the refined edges, like around the beard, around your hair. Looks really good. So as you'd expect with the Pixel, it's going to be heavily built around AI. But first, let's talk about the OS. So this is running Material 3 Expressive, I think it's called, and it's hit or miss for a lot of people in terms of its look and feel. Personally, I think it looks really good. Just navigating around the OS, it adds that extra bit of vibrancy. Some people don't like the fact it's slightly cartoony, but actually like it. It's easier to navigate, it's more fun, more customizable than it's ever been. And then it has all the great features that all the Pixel phones has ever had. So you can fully customize things like your lock screen, your display, your icons, etc. All of that looks really good. And then let's talk about some AI elements that are new to the Pixel 10 series. First of all, starting off with conversational edits. So this isn't actually available here in the UK, which was a shock because I was trying to find it and I couldn't find it on the phone. But essentially what you have here, pull some video from Google, is instead of drawing or highlighting areas that you want to change, like things like Magic Eraser, you can actually just speak into it using Gemini and AI, and it'll actually remove it. And this, a lot of reviews in the US have tested this, and it works incredibly well. The other addition is something called Magic Q, C-U-E to be exact. And this idea here is it will read all of your emails within Gmail and calendar entries, and then if you're, say, conversing with somebody and they ask you when is your flight, it will pull that information and then you'll be able to send that across, or reservations in a restaurant, for example. Now for us, trying to replicate this was not happening. Trying over and over again didn't happen. All we kept getting were view calendars or go to your calendar, and then when you go into the calendar, you could see it, and you're still having to type out the message. So it never worked for us at any point, which is a bit of a shame. Definitely a software bug that needs to be corrected. The other feature that I want to quickly touch on is something called Camera Coach. Now this is probably good for newbies who want to look at things like framing and be able to get the right depth of field, etc. But essentially where you go here is it will tell you how and when to frame your shot and how to take a photo and how to capture it. It's not very personalized because you may want to capture a different angle or a different subject in a weird way to make it a bit more funky or different. If you have a particular theme for social media, it's not going to be able to capture it that way, but it does a decent enough job in guiding you to get the right photo. Overall, that Pixel OS Material Expressive looks and runs very well. And we haven't even touched on other really great AI features, things like speech to text, which is unrivaled on the Pixel in terms of accuracy from voice to text, call screen, of course, and now there is an addition, we want to quickly mention this, of a journal app, really good for things like mindfulness, to wind down your day, and to be able to put some context behind certain situations in life that can help you feel stressed or happy or joyful, for example. So that is a nice addition to the OS as well. Power. It's powered by the Tensor G5, and everyone's expecting it to be a big jump towards the flagship level, which it isn't. In fact, it is a significant jump over the Pixel 9's Tensor G4, but when you compare it on Antutu's benchmarks in terms of its general performance, it ranks alongside something like the A56, which is gross, if those benchmarks are correct. Just want to put that out there as a proviso. If you compare to something like a Snapdragon 8 Elite, it is an 81% difference between the two, so it's nowhere near at that level. And then if, again, compare it on single multi-core against Geekbench, again, nowhere near on either of those versus Snapdragon 8 Elite. And then when you do a comparison on Nano Review, comparing the CPU and GPU of the Tensor G5 versus other chipsets on the market, it actually sits alongside, in terms of GPU, the Snapdragon 8S Gen 4 and then 8S Gen 3 for the CPU. So what you're getting here is sort of a mid-range processor, probably what you find very similar in a Nothing Phone 3. Not bad, but still available. And this is the first year that they've actually fabricated the chipset inside, not with Samsung Foundry, but with TSMC. So hopefully in the future, we might see a big uplift. But the real world terms past all that technical exercise is gaming, and you can run games like Call of Duty Mobile on very high for graphics and max for FPS, so you get a super smooth, buttery experience with no dropped frame rates and no issues in terms of graphical load times, etc. It'd be remiss of us to not talk about this display. 6.3-inch OLED with 120Hz. It is not an LTPO panel, just to put that out there, with 3000 nits of peak brightness, 86% screen to body ratio, which hasn't changed from the Pixel 9 from last year. So you still have the slightly thicker borders, which is a bit of a shame. I don't think it's off-putting, but it is present. Generally though speaking, because it's an OLED panel, what you're gonna have here is an incredible experience. Colors look super vibrant, rich, detailed. There's a really good job of representing the colorful, brighter areas with the darker areas really nicely, so you're getting this super immersive experience. And then on top of that, if you throw that brightness 3000 nits all the way up when using it outdoors, again, everything's gonna be super punchy and visible, which is excellent and exactly what you want on your flagship smartphone. So one of the biggest additions on the Pixel 10 series as a whole is the addition of Qi 2 wireless charging, and effectively the ability to magnetically connect cases, accessories to the back of your phone, which is sick. Now there's a couple of provisions we have to put on here, and that is you only get 15 watts max speeds in terms of wireless charging, and then the battery itself is 4,970 milliamp hours and only will recharge at 30 watts. Both of those are an absolute shame, because you can get Apple devices with their magnetic connectors on the back and they will charge at 50 watts, and then a lot of flagships are charging at 4,500 watts. So those coming out of China and Korea are doing it much faster at a much higher rate, which is a shame. Put some context behind that, 55% in 30 minutes, from 0 to 55%, it takes 30 minutes. So it's not particularly quick. And then in terms of the battery impact, let's talk about some performance testing. So when we ran this through 3D Mark's Wildlife Extreme tests, that's 20 cycles of it in full, it gave impressive results. Not much in the way of CPU throttling, which is really good, but also in those full 20 cycles, it only used 2% battery. There was a significant jump in terms of temperature, went from 37 to 46 degrees, but overall, I think that chipset and that battery performed very well under extreme testing circumstances, which no one's ever going to use on a daily basis. So the Pixel 10 has added a lot of really great features. A massive new battery that is actually more powerful and more dense than the 10 Pro. You got now triple cameras, Pixel Snap as well on the back, and then you got a really great display on that 6.3-inch OLED that we mentioned. So it's incredible, and there's some really good highlight features here, including the UI. The downsides, I think, are all related entirely to its performance, and that CPU just doesn't cut it at that top end level, which is a shame. But Pixels have always been about a refined, smooth, smart user experience, and the Pixel 10 does that in abundance and does it really well. Now, at the start of this video, we mentioned about the Pixel 10 Pro getting all the hype and being the phone to buy. So is the Pixel 10 actually the one you should get? Well, yeah, because you'll save roughly £200 to £300 depending on storage size that you'll buy, and you'll get a very similar experience. And the only key differences between the two that I think most people will care about is slightly better cameras on the Pro models versus the Pixel 10. But let us know in the comment section your thoughts on the Pixel 10 itself. Is this the default Pixel 10 series phone to buy in 2025, or are you getting the Pro, or are you waiting for the new iPhone 17 series before you decide? Let us know in the comment section, and be sure to like and subscribe. Until the next one, as always, we out.